File item 46, passed and retained. File item 47 is H.R. 53. Clerk will read.
House Resolution 53 by Assemblymember Gonzalez and others relative to Immigrant Heritage Month.
Ms. Gonzalez, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. H.R. 53 declares the month of June 2016 as Immigrant Heritage Month and recognizes the important role of immigrants in our state's economy and future. As the daughter of an immigrant, we know how important immigrants make this state. California is home to approximately 10 million immigrant residents, which contribute to our state's diverse and rich culture. They contribute to 20% of our workforce, including 10% of our workforce who are here and are undocumented. In 2014, immigrants contributed $650 million to the state's GDP. We know in California we do a lot for immigrants, but we can't say the same thing at the federal level. Earlier this morning, unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court had a deadlock decision relating to the president's executive action, which means that 5 million people in our country will continue to have to struggle and worry that they'll be ripped apart from their families simply because they weren't born here. It's a disappointing outcome because our country and state continue to thrive with the contributions of all of these communities. Today's deadlock decision demonstrates that immigrant families are not a priority in our nation, although they seem to continue to be one here in California. I'm proud to be from this state where every day we recognize the contribution of immigrants in our state. I hope that we will open the first roll for co-authors.
Mr. Bonta, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. On behalf of the API Legislative Caucus, I'm proud to rise in support of H.R. 53. We're a beautiful state and nation of immigrants. And the immigrant dream is the American dream. The immigrant dream is the California dream, that no matter where you come from or your life circumstances, you can come to America and with commitment and perseverance, build a new life full of hope and opportunity for you and your family. Many of you and your families had that dream. My family had that dream. After my older sister and I were born in the Philippines and in the ramp up to the declaration of martial law and the Ferdinand Marcos dictatorship, my parents left the Philippines to seek new opportunity in California and to rebuild our lives here. That story has been told thousands of times in California and throughout America. And as our courageous U.S. Congress member John Lewis just said yesterday, our ancestors may have come to America in different ships, but we are all in the same boat now. We are indeed in the same boat now, and our collective immigrant heritage is a critical and inextricable part of who we are and what makes us great. Please join me in celebrating America's immigrants past, present, and future and voting aye on H.R. 53.
Thank you, Mr. Bonta. Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I also rise in support of this resolution, and I want to commend the author from San Diego for bringing it forward, because in many ways, this resolution is on one of the most fundamental American topics that this House could address. The stark truth is that nearly all of us are either immigrants or the children of immigrants, the descendants of immigrants, and we're all Americans, whether our ancestors were here on the Mayflower or whether they came from Michoacan. The story of migration is a story of humankind since time immemorial. Humankind has moved from place to place, trying to find a better life from the beginning of time. And our own stories give us strength, because it was our own ancestors who came to this country that fought to give us a better life. When my grandfather came during the Bracero program and later brought his family, and he first came to the Pajaro Valley in Watsonville, it was a Japanese-American immigrant farmer who gave him his first job, gave my family a place to stay, and 3 years later taught my grandfather how to be his own sharecropper, and they were both selling strawberries to Driscoll's. Two immigrant families from two different parts of the world, but with a shared dream and a shared vision to give themselves and their children a better life in this country. My grandfather described this man, Roy Takamune, as the best man he ever met during his life in the United States. Those are our immigrant stories here in California. But this is important to keep in mind, especially given the hateful and intolerant rhetoric pervading some parts of our political world. Words that seek to scapegoat new arrivals to this country are fundamentally un-American in a nation of immigrants. I stand before you to ask you to put aside that sentiment that seeks to call one group of people more American simply because of where their ancestors came from or when their ancestors came to this country. Because when we do what this resolution requests, celebrating immigrants. We are actually celebrating the story of our own families and ourselves. I respectfully ask you to support this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Vallejo. Ms. Lopez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. As a proud immigrant from Michoacan, Mexico, I rising young actor for the House Resolution 53. Since the start, our country, immigrants have made significant contribution by bringing the rich culture to our society, serving in armed forces, being critical, engaged in the civil, holding public office. In our state, I believe that immigrants is a major reason why California has recently become the 6th largest economy. Today, at this House, recognize that how immigrants have shaped our state, and fortunately that country did not. Today, millions of immigrants' lives across that country have placed their lives in pause once again. But ruling the Supreme Court is upsetting. Whatever, as an immigrant myself, I will continue to serve my community and continue to fight for all the immigrants in our whole state. Thank you, members, and I ask for urgent aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Ms. Waldron, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in support of this resolution. As many of you know, I've spoken quite often about the fact that my parents were immigrants to this country. My dad getting his green card, as well as my mother's family never speaking any English. But I've never really talked about the fact that my husband's family are also immigrants to this country, having come here when they were 19 and 20 years old. In fact, my mother-in-law said that she wanted to move to California, and the only way she would marry my father-in-law was if he agreed to come here. So when they came into the country, the customs official at the time said, "Son, you know, when you come here, you're going to be drafted." It was the era of the Korean War. And he said, "That's okay. I want to be an American." They wanted to be an American. They wanted to be part of this great country and have the opportunities that we all enjoy here and the freedoms that we all enjoy here. And in fact, he went on to serve in the Korean War wearing the United States of America uniform in the Air Force. And after he came back, he pretty much swore off flying and never flew again, as far as I know. But our immigrants gave up a lot to make this country great. They built it what it is. I think I've inherited my love of this country and our freedoms from my immigrant parents, and I'm wholeheartedly supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waldron. Mr. Arambula, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm a little afraid now that I've broken the dam and started to speak about what starts to come out, but it comes from a good place. Mis abuelitos entraron sin documentos y trabajar todos los días en los campos. Mi padre fue el primera persona de nuestra familia que nació aquí en los Estados Unidos, y tengo un sueño, que todos somos iguales y que tenemos los mismos derechos. My grandparents came to this country without papers and worked every day of their lives in the field. They never went to a day of school. My father became one of the first dozen or two of Latinos who ever graduated from Harvard. I became a physician and am the first Latino physician that our state has ever had. I am an example of what an immigrant is in our country, and I have a dream deeply rooted in the American dream, that we are all the same, and that we all have the same basic human rights. And I am proud to say that I will be urging and supporting this measure. It is important for us to thank the people who have walked before us, because we stand on their shoulders. I would not be here today but for the courage of my grandparents to come to this great country and to fight that each and every one of us can be American. Thank you.
Mr. Thurmond, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I rise in support of H.R. 53. I'm rising on behalf of the Black Caucus, and we are in solidarity in the sentiments of this resolution. My own thoughts are shaped by my own personal experience as the grandson of immigrants. My grandmother was born in Colombia. My grandfather born in Jamaica. They settled in Panama and ultimately raise their grandchildren in America. And my other grandparents' experience is that of an immigration experience of hardship of African American slaves. But yet we know that the experience of all immigrants has made this country strong. My own spiritual views shaped by those who emigrated here to escape religious persecution and violence. So many benefits have been provided to this nation because of the immigration experience of so many. And even in the work that we've done in this legislature, last year and this year, providing dollars in our budget for naturalization to help those who are eligible to become citizens, what we've done is we've strengthened families in California, and we've actually generated more revenue for our state. I lift that up to say that the conversation about immigration is an important one for California. It is an opportunity for us to have a conversation about how to address our immigration policies and to create a pathway to citizenship for those who have no other desire than to work hard, pay taxes, take care of their families, and continue to make our nation a great one. I urge your support of this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Mr. Levine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. California's story is an immigrant story, and many of you have heard me talk about denim jeans recently. Levi Strauss and Jacob Davis, who had the patents on denim jeans, were Bavarian Jews that immigrated from Germany and had a global impact based on this invention. Just a few decades later, immigration for Jews from Europe changed, and during the Holocaust, a boat, the St. Louis, was turned away from our coast and sent back to Europe to send those Jewish passengers back to their deaths at the hands of the Nazis. If that policy had not been changed after the Holocaust, we would not have had other immigrants in California that created jobs and innovated the economy, like Andy Grove, Elon Musk, Sergey Brin, and so many others. Recognizing this, it is important to know that we must condemn efforts to build a wall between our state and Mexico. We must condemn efforts to ban immigration based on faith, including any exclusions of Muslims who are fleeing horrible crimes and tragedy around the world. California is an immigrant state, and I'm proud to stand in support of this resolution.
Ms. Chang, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in proud support of this resolution as an immigrant, and as you can tell, quite a few of us are immigrants on the floor. And only in this nation, in California, can we stand up and serve as legislators. I'm very proud of that. This nation is built by immigrants, and I am completely in awe of this legislature, also of the author to support immigrants, and I would ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Linder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I just wanted to kind of come up and point out something, that this is just another great reason to be an American. You look around at this body and you see the diversity. This is the real embodiment of what it's like to be an American, and I'm telling you, I'm proud to be serving with everybody here. As the son of an immigrant as well. My dad came here from Mexico when he was young, and really has lived his entire life the American dream. So it's a real pleasure and honor to support this resolution, and a real honor to serve with such a melting pot of diverse individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. All debate having ceased, Ms. Gonzalez has asked that the first roll be open for co-authors on the House resolution. Clerk will open the roll. Members, this is co-authors. This is for co-authors on the House resolution. This is for co-authors, members. There are, clerk will close the roll, 72 co-authors added on the resolution. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Moving quickly back to guest introductions. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized for your guest introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I am honored to introduce guests that we have in our gallery today, just up here. The Young Senators Leadership Program that is put together by my senator, Senator Tony Mendoza, for their 32nd Senate District. These young senators have a mission statement of helping constituents in the community through courteous, friendly, non-judgmental service and to help educate and lead the next generation of leaders. Members, please join me in giving them a big assembly welcome.
Members, back on the file. File item 48 is passed and retained. File item 49 is AJR 45. Clerk will read.
Assembly Joint Resolution 45 by Assembly Member David Chu relative to civil rights.
Mr. Chu, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. Today I ask for your support of AJR 45 to urge Congress to pass the Equality Act. Despite the 2015 U.S. Supreme Court ruling that established marriage equality, there is no federal law that establishes discrimination protections for LGBT Americans in areas such as employment, housing, public accommodations, public education, and federal funding. While we are fortunate that our state has a strong record of standing up for LGBT civil rights with laws against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, this is not the case across our country. The large majority of states currently lack similar non-discrimination protections for LGBT Americans, including our Californians who are not protected when they cross our state borders. Today, a gay job applicant could be rejected at being hired at a company. A lesbian teacher could be fired once her principal finds that she's planning to have a child. A transgender individual could be denied care at a hospital. A same-sex couple could be denied a wedding cake from a bakery. These stories are all too common across our country. The Equality Act proposed by Congress provides essential updates to the 1964 Civil Rights Act to include protections based on sexual orientation, gender identity, and actual or perceived sex in these areas. The updates also address certain kinds of discrimination still facing women and people of color. During LGBT Pride Month, on the eve of the largest Pride celebration in the country that's happening this weekend in my city, and in the wake of Orlando, I ask for your aye vote on AJR 45 and also ask that the first roll be open for co-authors.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Mr. Lowe, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. I wanted to, in the spirit of June as LGBT Pride Month, commend the author for his leadership on this issue and respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. All debate having ceased on the item, AJR requires a roll call vote. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote. Sorry, strike the roll. Strike the roll, members. My correction, this will be for co-authors on the first roll. We have struck the roll. We are opening the roll for co-authors on the resolution. Clerk will open the roll. Members, this is for co-authors on the resolution. This is co-authors, members. This is for co-authors on the resolution. Clerk will close the roll. There are 50 co-authors added. We will now take a roll call vote on the resolution itself. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who wish to vote. 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 Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 51, noes 9. The resolution is adopted. On Senate third reading, file items 50 through 61. Pass and retain. File item 62 is SB 1186. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1186 by Senator Lara, an act relating to state claims, making an appropriation therefore, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Ms. Gonzalez, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 1186 is our yearly state claims bill. It would appropriate approximately $5.3 million to Victims' Compensation and Government Claims Board for the payment of the following 274 state claims. 267 claims are for reissuing state checks that were never cashed, and general fund appropriations to pay 7 claims related to erroneous convictions. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 69, no 0 on the measure. Bill passes. File item 63, SB 1038. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1038 by Senator Allen and others, and Accolating Community Colleges.
Dr. Wood, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, I rise today to present SB 1038, which will help alleviate the recurring shortage of tuberculosis tests by eliminating mandated universal tuberculosis testing for all community college employees and replace this testing requirement with universal TB screening and testing of people with higher risk factors. The most common test for TB is the tuberculin skin test. The tuberculin used for TB skin testing is frequently in short supply. As one approach to combat the recurring national shortage of tuberculin, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend allocating tuberculosis sensitivity tests only to those who are high risk for TB. Current law requiring TB testing for community college employees is inconsistent with the guidelines set by the CDC, the California Department of Public Health, and the California Tuberculosis Controllers Association. The best public health and medical evidence suggests that universal TB testing is not necessary or cost effective. This bill has received strong bipartisan support and has no opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 76, no 0. The measure passes. File items 64 through 68, passed and retained. File item 69 is SB 1082. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1082 by Senator McGuire and Accolating the Parks.
Mr. Levine, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This bill is a district bill that allows the Sonoma Ag and Open Space District to raise their rate from $25K to $50K for without a formal bidding process. It still needs to be approved by their county board of supervisors. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 67, no 0. Measure passes. File items 70 through 74, pass and retain. File item 75, SB 1092. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1092 by Senator Monning and Accolating the Business.
Mr. Cooley, you may open.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to bring before you SB 1092. This is a bill dealing with internet rental listing insurance disclosure. This is actually an outstanding bill. There's lots of platforms out there that let people rent their properties to short-term tenants. Homeowners insurance, unlike auto insurance, varies greatly among the policies. This simply advises people to make sure they've read their policy so they know what rules will apply in case there's any problems during the tenancy, that they will have coverage. So it's really a rule of prudence, outstanding advice to the market of folks who would wish to use this, and urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. Measure passes. File item number 76, pass and retain. Moving to consent calendar, does any member wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, clerk will read the second-day consent calendar.
Senate Joint Resolution 23 by Senator Bates and others relative to the Interim Consolidated Storage Act of 2016.
Clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members vote or desire to vote. This is consent calendar, members. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 75, no 0. Consent calendar is adopted. The clerk will read the remaining bills on the second-day consent calendar.
Senate Bill 1477.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 815 with urgency.
Ayes 75, no 0. On the urgency, ayes 75, no 0 on the bill.
Senate Bill 1480.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1481.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1330.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1474.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 975.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1315.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1360.
Ayes 75, no 0.
Senate Bill 1123.
Ayes 75, no 0.
And Senate Concurrent Resolution 112.
Ayes 75, no 0. We will now move to announcements and adjournments in memory. Members, the Rules Committee will be meeting upon adjournment in the Rules Committee room. The Rules Committee will be meeting in the Rules room upon adjournment. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. The session schedule is as follows. Friday, June 24th, no floor session, no check-in session. Monday, June 27th, floor session at 1 p.m. In the absence of objection, the quorum call is lifted, and we will now move to previously announced adjournments in memory. Adjournments in memory. Members, please either take your seats or move your conversations off the floor. Members, please take your seats. We are at adjournments in memory. Mr. Kansen Chu, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and member. I rise today to adjourn in the memory of San Jose police officer Michael Caterman. Officer Caterman was killed when his motorcycle crashed into a minivan while on patrol. His end of watch was June 14, 2016. Officer Michael Caterman joined the San Jose PD in July 2005. After attending the police academy, he worked as a patrol officer, where he was awarded the department's Outstanding Police Duty Award in 2009. And I was very honored to be there at the 2009 to witness him receiving this award. In September 2015, he was assigned to the Traffic Enforcement Unit as a motor officer. Officer Caterman was a loving husband and father and a hero to his children. He was devoted to his family and the police department. He was an outdoorsman and enjoyed riding motorcycles and dirt bikes. Officer Caterman is survived by his wife, April, and his two sons, Josh, age 10, and Jason, age 8. He was 34 years of age. Members, please keep your thoughts and prayers with the family of Officer Caterman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Ms. Campos on this adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I join my colleague in adjourning in memory of San Jose police officer Michael Caterman. As elected officials, we get the opportunity to spend a lot of time working with our local police department. Through this opportunity, we see how the officers are truly a tight-knit family and how much they care for the people they serve and their department. And while I believe our entire San Jose Police Department is outstanding, Officer Catterman exemplified the best of the best. He had an unmatched devotion to his community and his family. And as my colleague mentioned, while Michael is remembered by the community for his work and dedication, we know that he will be extremely missed by his family and the police department. His family will remember him as a loving husband and father to his wife, April, and his sons. He will forever be a hero to his two boys, Josh and Jason. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those closest to Michael and to our city. He will forever be remembered for his service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. Mr. Jones, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I ask that we adjourn in memory today of a good friend and colleague of mine from San Diego County, Rick Alexander. Rick was born April 15, 1946 in New York, the youngest of three boys, and moved to Burbank, California with his parents when he was 3. A trip that he often recounted to his daughters to detail the struggles of a summer car ride across the country in a car with no air conditioning. He grew up in Burbank, and when he was 15, he entered the 10th grade geometry classroom and met Joan Budig, the woman who became his wife, mother of his children, and the love of his life. Joan often tries to make excuses for her poor geometry grade, blaming it on the cute, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy that stole her heart. In high school, Rick was the ultimate surfer boy and also spent time riding horses with the likes of Ricky Nelson. After high school graduation, Rick went away to the University of Montana, where he studied sociology, worked as a photographer for the yearbook, participated in ROTC, and took every chance possible to hitchhike home to see his sweetheart. During this time, he also took up luge racing and competed at the international level. Upon graduating from college in 1969, Rick became an officer in the U.S. Army and married Joan. The two drove off to New Jersey, where Rick was first stationed before being deployed to shape the military arm of NATO in Mons, Belgium. Rick and Joan lived in Belgium for 2 years and enjoyed many European adventures with friends and family who came to visit. Upon returning to the United States in 1972, Rick and Joan moved to East County, San Diego, and began building their lives there. Rick soon took up bike riding and flying Cessna planes. He helped start a family ranch where they lived and raised cattle for several years. Rick began working in real estate and became involved in local politics. In 1985, Joan gave birth to their first daughter, Megan, and in 1988, their second daughter, Karen, was born. In 1991, Rick was elected to the Board of Trustees for the Grossmont-Cuyamaca Community College District, where he served as a board member for 20 years. Over the past 40-plus years, Rick has worked tirelessly to improve his community through his work in politics and real estate. This included great contributions to the San Diego Association of Realtors, the East County Economic Development Council. All the while, the most important thing remained his family and his friends that he also considered family. 10 years ago, Rick found a new passion outside of work and family and in the kitchen, where he became a gourmet-level cook. He found great joy in creating delicious meals and sharing them with others. 3 years ago, Rick walked Karen down the aisle to marry Zach, and in November 15th, 2015, they welcomed granddaughter Hartley, their first grandchild. Then in April of this year, he got to walk Megan down the aisle to marry Basin. Seeing both his daughters find their soulmates and true loves brought Rick more joy than anything in the world. Rick was healthy, happy, and enjoying a truly blessed life. Sadly, it was just 2 months after that he suffered a stroke at home. Although he got to the hospital and seemed to be recovering, he passed away in the hospital 4 days later. His family and friends are shocked and heartbroken. He will be terribly missed by everyone that knew him, including myself. Thank you, members, for adjourning in Rick Alexander's memory today.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Dr. Wood, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I rise to ask that we adjourn in the memory of David Grable, who was a public interest attorney in Sonoma County and a fierce advocate for fair and affordable housing in a region that needed him most. David was born in 1942 in Cleveland, Ohio, graduated from Yale and the University of Pennsylvania School of Law. Everywhere he went, David had a knack for finding his community's most pressing issues and putting his remarkable intellect and determination to work. In 1974, he and his wife bought a farm in West Virginia where he helped miners with black lung ailments and worked with the state's first women's clinic to ultimately overturn West Virginia's ban on abortion. In 1981, David moved to California where he fought for workers' rights and better working conditions. As our state's housing crisis deepened in the mid-1990s, he shifted his attention to tenants' rights and quickly emerged as one of the region's most vigorous supporters of fair and affordable housing. He and his law firm, the Housing Advocacy Group, are widely credited with causing the development of more than 500 low-income units throughout Sonoma County. David Grable passed away on Saturday, June 11th. He was 74. He is survived by his wife, Dorothy, 4 children, and 5 grandchildren. I ask that we adjourn in the memory of David Grable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. Members, please bring the names to the desk to be printed in the journal. All requests to adjourn in memory will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Seeing and hearing no further business, I am ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Tang moves and Mr. Gray seconds that this House stands adjourned until Monday, June 27th at 1 p.m. Quorum call is lifted.